The Miami Heat dropped a season worst 4 games under 500 last night, where they only put up 86 points versus the stinky Atlanta Hawks. And somehow that wasn't even the worst thing to happen, as our guy Nikola Jovic went down with a broken hand, and now he's expected to miss at least a month as what Brendan Tobin is calling the season of hell continues. Shout out to Brendan Tobin, man. I remember back in the day, he was calling Nikola Jovic a little sweetener. And now he's blossomed all the way into Jovic, dude, who really took a big jump this season. One of the few players this season on the Heat who you can say took like a tangible leap. Like you could physically see it out there on the court. But yes, unfortunately, as Anthony Chang reported earlier today, it has been determined that Nikola Jovic suffered a fracture in the second metacarpal of his right hand, and he will be in a splint to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Now, fortunately for y'all, I am a doctor. I did go to 12 years of law school. So what you see in this photo right here is all the metacarpals. So Nikola Jovic broke the second one, which is his index finger. And unfortunately, it is in his right hand, his shooting hand. Now, of course, the ironic part about this is last year, or I guess not last year, 2 years ago in Milwaukee, Tyler Hero broke his hand also. So I don't know what it is about that stadium or arena or what's in the water over there, but something about it just causes all our players to break their hands, because that's a very weird coincidence. Except with Tyler Hero, he actually broke his third and fourth metacarpal. So instead of the index finger, it was the ring finger and the middle finger. Fortunately for Tyler Hero, he won't need that ring finger for a long time. No shade to Tyler Hero, but this Heat team sucks right now. Anyways, that being said, the Heat do have 7 weeks left in the season. So currently, at the time of this recording, it's February 25th. So 4 weeks from now would put us at March 25th, which gives you 10 games before the end of the season. So it's not necessarily saying that Jovic will return in 4 weeks. It's saying that he will be reevaluated. Now, hopefully, he is able to return around that time. And then he does have 10 games, which I think is a nice, solid sample size to sort of get the rust off you to try to go on a playoff run, even though the odds of that seem much less likely than they did just 2 weeks ago. But still, they're in the play-in tournament. Currently, the good thing about the draft picks this year, the way everything works kind of nowadays, is it's based off where you finish in the regular season. So even if the Heat were to finish in the 9th seed, which they're currently in, or the 10th seed, they could still win the play-in game, go to the playoffs, maybe win a series or two, or an NBA championship. I don't know. But regardless, it doesn't matter how far they go in the playoffs. Their draft pick would be locked in according to where they finish in the regular season. And obviously, their pick this year is lottery protected. So if the Heat were to finish 9 or 10, that's a lottery pick. And they would have their first-round draft pick this year, which I think a lot of Heat fans are rooting for. I don't know. There's all kind of protections where if they get the pick this year, they won't get it next year. But I kind of want it this year because I might want to trade it for Kevin Durant. I don't know. There's been a lot of that talk going on today. But anyways, let's talk a little bit more about Nikola Jovic, who this season, the numbers don't necessarily jump out at you. He's averaging 10.7 points per game, which is exactly 3 points higher than last season. But other than that, none of the numbers are really that drastically different at all. Last year, he was shooting 45%. This year, he's at 45%. Last year, he was at 40% from three. This year, he's at 37%. So obviously, that decreased a little bit, but his attempts did go up about one more per game. So he's at about 4.6. And for a guy that's 6'10", I'll take 37% shooting from three on about 4.5 attempts. That's pretty good in my book. The unfortunate part is last season he played 46 games, and this season he played exactly 46 games. So it was looking like he was going to surpass that by a wide margin. And now we don't know. We don't know exactly when he will return, but you can see the rebounds are actually about the same. The assists, he's up about 1 assist, but the points is certainly what jumps out at you as far as statistically. But if you've been watching these games, and I guess if you haven't been watching, I don't blame you because the product has been nothing short of miserable. But if you have been watching these games, Nikola Jovic has been one of the bright spots, and you can see him out there on the court look like a much improved player. He's a guy that for his first couple seasons in the league, or I guess his first season in the league, he only played 15 games. He was a guy that Spo didn't really trust a lot, which is obvious. He was a very skinny, lanky kid. He was a developmental project, I guess you could say, being taken in the early to mid 20s, I think, when in the first round. So he was a guy that they were going to try to develop. And within year 2, he was getting DNPs to start the season. It looked like it might be another year of no run for Nikola Jovic. But of course, to end last season, he did get into the starting lineup, played well in spurts. He was in and out the lineup still. And then this year, he actually was starting early in the year, but then he kind of got solidified to that bench role where he was really thriving, and that's where he really took off. We saw the origination of tall time with Khalil Ware and Jovic. They certainly had a great connection, and I love the fact that Jovic was thriving off the bench because he was able to be himself, meaning he was able to have the ball in his hands. A lot of times when he was starting last year at the starting power forward spot, he was just sort of a floor spacer, like a stretch 4, which he can do, but I mean, you see he shot 40% from 3 last year. He can do that, but that's not where he thrives. That's not where he can reach his full potential. He is great with the ball in his hands. And I know the assist numbers don't necessarily show it, but in transition, he's awesome. When he gets a rebound, he's able to go immediately, which really helps pick up the tempo for this team that desperately needs an increase in tempo because they're so slow. So even if he's not getting assists, he is pushing the pace for this team, which is very critical in today's game to try to get some easy buckets. The other thing I love about him this year is he is actually using his size. He's not just one of those skinny European white boys who likes to stand behind the 3. No, when he has a mismatch on him, he takes advantage of that. He'll have a smaller guy on his back and immediately put his shoulder into him, back him down. He could spin over the left shoulder or the right shoulder, and he's able to finish in the paint with relatively decent efficiency. That's something that I've been wanting Bam Adebayo to do for years. Bam doesn't really quite have a post game yet. A lot of times when he has a smaller guy on his back, he'll pass it out or he'll settle for a fadeaway, where Nikola Jovic puts his back into him. And I absolutely love that about him because obviously the Heat are a team that really is lacking size. And although Nikola Jovic is a pretty versatile big man, he kind of plays like a guard on the offensive end, he is able to get into the paint and kind of use his size there, which is something that the Heat desperately need. Defensively, I think he's been improved. There's been times this year where he's looked lost, but last year that was almost an every game thing. This year, he's made some nice plays this year, even late in the game. He's drawn a couple charges, had some blocks. So you can tell that Spo is trusting him more on that end also. I mean, who can forget even Spo drew up a game winner for Nikola Jovic versus Minnesota. Last year, I mean, even earlier in this year, I think Jovic actually had a couple of DNPs. So relatively recently, in the grand scheme of everything, Jovic was a guy that Spo didn't necessarily trust. And this year, we're seeing him draw plays, game-winning plays for him. We're seeing him get these fourth quarter minutes. We saw developing recently the tall time 2.0 with Bam and Ware and Jovic. And that's something that has been pretty successful so far, especially early on when the Heat first debuted it. But I think if Spo would really commit to it, I think that group could really find something because obviously Bam and Ware, that starting duo in the front court, has been pretty good offensively, decent defensively. But Jovic is sort of able to be a guard, a secondary ball handler to Tyler Hero. And that's why I think that unit with those 3 really works. That's why it's really unfortunate now we're not going to be able to get the rest of the season, or at least most of the rest of the season, to develop that group. Because I do think there's a lot of potential there. I guess fortunately, though, Jovic still has 1 more year in his contract next year. He'll be on the last year of his rookie deal, where he'll be making about $4.5 million at 22 years old. After that, the Heat certainly have a lot of discussions in which they need to do. Now, maybe those discussions are ended this offseason because maybe he does get a rookie extension, but the Heat kind of got to pick a direction. We talked about KD earlier. Are they going to go after Kevin Durant? Are they going to try to get Trae Young and maybe go a little bit more young? Or are they really going to buy into this core of Wiggins, Tyler, and Bam, which I think would be stupid. I think they should either sell off, go young, or they should try to get KD and go all in, I don't know exactly what that means at this point, but that's a whole topic for a completely different video. The point is, with regards to Nikola Jovic's contract, they're going to have to make a decision on that very soon. If they were to offer him a contract in this offseason, what is he worth at this point? I don't know. I mean, for a guy of his skill set and his age, I could see him making between $8 and $10 million. Truthfully, that might even be on the low end relative to some of his peers. You might think that's a lot for a guy whose numbers are only like 10, 4, and 2, but you do have to take the potential into account, especially if you're signing to a 4-year deal. I wouldn't go north of, 15 million. That's for certain. But I do think he's a guy that is probably worth around 8 to 10, and maybe you have to settle to give him a little bit more. But that being said, how did he pivot for the rest of the season? Well, Truthfully, I don't even know if they want to make the playoffs or not. I know they're a team that never tanks. They will never intentionally tank, but maybe deep down they do see the benefits of not trying to improve the roster. I mean, there's a lot of people want to talk about the buyout market and stuff, but because after the trade deadline, the Heat acquired an extra player, they got Kyle Anderson, we no longer have an open roster spot, so they do have the maximum 15 guys on the roster. I suppose you could waive someone, buy someone out, but I just don't see that as a realistic candidate at this point. Besides, there's not too many players in the buyout market at this moment. I tried looking up some bigs. The only bigs I saw was like Marvin Bagley, like maybe, but who wants him? There's guys, guards like Malcolm Brogdon and stuff that he could potentially use, but that's not what this video is about, and they don't have the roster spot anyway. So in the meantime, you're going to need to look in the roster to find a replacement for Nikola Jovic. So we'll kind of go down the list here and just see who could possibly contribute. Obviously, Bam Adebayo might get an uptick in minutes. Spo was playing those guys those last couple of games versus Atlanta and Milwaukee. I think like Hero was pushing 40 points. Bam, same thing. So he certainly is playing these guys more. But Bam's going to get his minutes as he should. Kyle Anderson was the guy who was the immediate replacement. Anderson is 6'9", so he's only about a foot shorter than Jovic. And he does a lot of the similar things. I've been very impressed with Kyle Anderson in his, 4 or 5 or 6 game Heat tenure so far. He is so slow that it almost is like he's able to slow down the defense as well. He has this unique ability of getting other people to play at his pace, and then he uses that to find creases in the defense to either attack or facilitate. I've been very impressed with him. We saw him have a great connection with Duncan Robinson. We saw him have a lot with Khalil Ware last game, and he's just sort of able to slow the game down to get to his spots, to find other guys, or I guess wait for other guys to be open and then find them. So in terms of a facilitating big, that is a little bit of a similarity with Nikola Jovic, and for that reason, I do think Kyle Anderson will continue to get a sizable amount of minutes, probably close to 20 minutes a game, maybe a little bit more. And offensively, he's able to get into the paint a little bit. He uses his big 6'9" frame to finish over defenders. He hit a 3 yesterday, although that's clearly not his game because that boy got a shot that takes about 3 seconds long. If you're on the audio side, you didn't see or hear anything except 3 seconds of dead silence. But that's what it is when Kyle Anderson shoots. But yeah, Kyle Anderson, I've been happy with him so far. He'll get an uptick in minutes. Obviously, as we go down the list here, Haywood Highsmith has been getting DNPs. Spo tried running him as a power forward many times. He's got a few center minutes in his career. I don't love him. I love Haywood Highsmith. I just don't like his minutes as a big. He should be playing some wing minutes at the 2 or the 3. But that being said, I think they might do a rotation by committee to try to fill in those Jovic minutes. And Haywood Highsmith, to me, he deserves minutes. I thought he was having a good season. I did. I thought defensively he was decent, and he was shooting about 39% from 3. What more can you ask from a 3 or D player? I really don't know. So maybe he gets some of his spot minutes back. Same with Jaime Jaquez, who... Jaime was a DMP 2 games ago. He played 7 minutes last game, and he was terrible. He got cooked on defense, like cooked. Like, I don't know why he's such a bad defender right now, but he is. Offensively, he just doesn't have this confidence. The jump shot is just non-existent. You got to play him to help develop him some. I really believe that, but I don't know. There's really a fine line for Spoelstra between letting guys ride out their bad games, but also pulling the plug, and I don't know where that line is. For him, for Terry Rozier, it was last game, I guess, because last game's the first game Terry didn't play. We'll see if that changes going forward, but obviously that doesn't really correlate to the Nikola Jovic minutes, Terry Rozier being a guard. But Jaime Jaquez plays that forward spot. I think he'll get some minutes going forward, and maybe Spo will just continue to pull the plug. But to me, if this season's going to nowhere, give the kid the young minutes, see if he can develop. I feel the same way about Kashad Johnson. At this point, to me, I'm kind of ready to give up on the season in terms of trying to win anything. Let the young guys get some run. Kashad Johnson's a guy that dominated the Summer League. He was amazing in the G League. He's a power forward. He's not really similar to Nikola Jovic at all, but he is a guy that can put the ball on the floor. Obviously, defensively, he can guard 1 through most 4s, some 4s. He's just an absolute force on that defensive end. I want to see him get minutes. And maybe going forward, he won't play every game. He won't be a part of the rotation, but maybe he can play once a week, a couple times a week, just to kind of start to get these young guys some real run. Moving down the list here, again, you got Kevin Love. a guy that's been away for the team for personal reasons. He's missed a lot of time this year from personal reasons, although I did hear that recently it's because he had a child. So, of course, congrats to Kevin Love. There are some people theorizing that the Heat kind of sent him home because of all his Instagram antics. I don't believe that. I don't think the Heat love his Instagram antics because they don't typically buy into all the memes and all that funny business. It just seems like they're more old school up front in the front office. But I don't believe they sent Kevin Love home. So if he is a guy that's able to get back to the team, he will get some minutes. I think Kevin Love is very effective in no more than 10 to 15 minutes a night. And if that's what he can give you, I'll take the 10 to 15 minutes a night. Even if it's the honorary starter minutes, the Luke Babbitt minutes, as I like to call them. Start the first 8 minutes of the first quarter, start the first 8 minutes of the third quarter, and that's it for K-Love. Maybe not every game, maybe every other game, but I think he's a guy that could still contribute a little bit. I think he has a little bit left in the tank in terms of his three-point ability. He can still draw the charge, and he's still an excellent rebounder. Can also push the pace with those outlet passes, kind of like Nikola Jovic was. And then outside of him, the only other big really that we didn't talk about is Khalil Ware, who's only been playing like 20 minutes a night. He needs to get more. He needs to be playing 30-plus minutes a night just to develop him, if anything. Now, outside of all these guys, maybe getting more minutes, the other option is just to start shutting them down completely. I mean, if you look at the standings right here, the Heat are currently the 9th seed. They're 26-30. They are tied with the Magic in the loss column at 7, and they're 5 up of the Bulls, who are in 10. And they are 4 back of the Pistons. So maybe they could catch up to the Pistons. Not likely. That team is absolutely hooping right now. So realistically, you could say the Heat could finish anywhere between 7 and 9. What's that going to get you? It's going to get you a first-round matchup with the Cavs or Celtics, and both those teams are going to whoop your ass. So maybe it is time to shut these guys down. Maybe it's time to slowly not play Bam and Tyler as much. Maybe not now, but maybe next month as we get later in the season. It's a little bit too early to pull the plug right now. You still got a couple weeks here to try to go on one final run. I'm just here to say if that doesn't happen, maybe start to wane away from those guys, wane away from Bam and Kyle Anderson, and start leaning more into the Kashad Johnsons and I guess Khalil Wares and less Hayward Highsmith. You know, just lean into the young guys. And that doesn't just go for the bigs and Nikola Jovic's minutes. That also goes for Josh Christopher. That goes for Isaiah Stevens, who a lot of people have been campaigning for, especially myself. But time will tell if the Heat are going to take that route. Now, I'm going to have a whole video out on whether they should tank. Maybe I'll have some time this weekend to get that out because I kind of want that to be a more well thought out research video because I want to look into the implications of their first round pick, the Warriors' first round pick, the odds of finishing with all of those, and then we can kind of get to you guys. And we could talk about Cooper Flagg a little bit, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, because I want to do a full in-depth research video on that because at this point with the Heat playing so poor, tanking is definitely something the Heat should consider. I'm not saying losing on purpose. When I say tanking, I'm just saying let the young guys get some run. You probably won't win as many games, but they can develop, and then you can go into next season, you know, with a potentially high draft pick. But that's all I got to say for this video. I just wanted to come on here and talk about Nikola Jovic a little bit and just kind of where things stand, especially since I will be at the Heat game tomorrow versus the Atlanta Hawks. So if I am able to get a post-game out, it'll be pretty late because I got to drive back to Fort Myers from Miami after the game. But that being said, I'll see you on the next one. Subscribe, comment, like. I appreciate all the support. I'll see y'all boys next time and ladies next time. There's a lot of females that watch the channel too. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out, y'all.
Pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need that head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.